Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys have a good Friday today. And we're going to do the second video on yesterday's combine results. And this video going to be a little shorter than the previous one. I want to take a look at some guys at the combine who I think need to be talked about because they're relatively high profile guys. But to me, these are the guys who kind of just did fine. Like, they didn't do anything terrible. They didn't make me like them less, but they also didn't bowl me over. And some of these guys I was kind of expecting to be bowled over a little bit, maybe. So maybe I'm a little disappointed in them, but I'm not really disappointed in them. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So these are the guys who gave me a mixed impression from yesterday. These are the guys who kind of made me go, yeah, okay. I mean, maybe I can see it. Like the expectation was more or less met, or maybe there was just like one or two areas where I was a little bit down, or maybe there was like a decent chunk of positives and negatives. You guys get it. So let's start with the first guy I want to talk about here, one of the edges, Will Anderson. And look, the expectations for this guy were so high, maybe there was just no way he was ever going to actually have like a great combine. Maybe it was impossible unless he ran like a 3-second 40 time. But I thought Will Anderson Jr. brought a couple of things that I liked and a couple of things that made me a little bit concerned. Maybe concern isn't the right word, but I don't feel differently about him than I did before, I guess. So I think the good thing about what Will Anderson did yesterday was his size. 6 foot 3.5, so 6'4" and 253 pounds. One of the knocks against Will Anderson has been his size. So looking at this size, there's going to be no problem. Like, this is perfectly in line with other elite edge players in the NFL. Depends on what kind of defense he ends up in. There are some defenses he might even want to lose a little bit of weight. But the size is not a problem. The arm length is good, almost 34 inches. Plenty good for an edge player. The mixed part, I think, comes with his 40-yard dash. There was a little bit of confusion at first. It said 4.69, which would actually be a problem. It ended up being 4.6. 4.6 is okay, but you wouldn't equate that with a generational talent necessarily. Now, the good news is the 10-yard split was 1.61, which is totally workable. But there are definitely edge players that do better than this in the combine every year. This doesn't exactly knock my socks off. It's fine, but this combine result doesn't necessarily scream generational. Another edge player that I was a little bit torn on after this combine is Isaiah Foskey of Notre Dame, and this guy's been in a free fall lately. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'm trying to see, can he save himself? Can he go back to being a first round pick? Or is he just doomed to fall into like late day two? At this point, he really might be a third rounder. So Isaiah Foskey, let's try to digest what he put up yesterday. First of all, he's pretty big. 6'5", 264 pounds. That's sizable. And that can be good, but maybe he's a little too heavy. 264 pounds, like, that's not really going to fly as an edge player in a 3-4. It would probably work in a 4-3, but at 264 pounds, you're probably a little too slow to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. And that's backed up by his 40 time, which was decent. I mean, it was a little bit better than Will Anderson's, right? 4.58. But you look at some of the other edge players that are just flying around, and this is a long way off. Well, Nolan Smith had the sub 4.4. You're taking a look at a 4.58. You can't help but be a little put off by it. His 10-yard split was 1.66. Fine, I guess, but not impressive. I guess it's workable, but I don't know if this does anything to really save his draft status. The vertical was 34 inches, 10 and a half, 10, excuse me, 10 feet, 5 inches on the broad jump. 3-cone drill seems a little bit slow to me for an edge player. 20-yard shuttle seems okay. So I was hoping to get some clarity on Isaiah Foskey in this combine, and I don't feel like we really got it. I I don't think he worked his way back into like the first round at this point. Maybe he's just going to be a late second or an early third rounder at this point. But I was a little bit confused by what I saw. I got some mixed messages here. Some of these results are okay. Some of them are kind of like bleh. Maybe nothing's terrible, but I'm trying to figure out where this guy fits into the picture here. And I feel kind of similarly mixed about our next player. This guy might be an edge, but I'm not totally convinced. I don't totally know what this guy is going to be in the NFL. It's Lucas Van Ness. And this guy was somebody I really wanted to see at the Combine because I actually thought he was going to, how should I put this, test kind of poorly. He was a guy who I didn't think would test well. He ended up exceeding my expectations. He tested okay in some areas, but I don't know if that's enough for me to say he tested actually like good. There's some good stuff here. I'm just trying to figure out if it's enough. So he's big. Let's get that out of the way. 6'5", 272 pounds. 272, arms 34 inches, which isn't super long, but it's fine. And 11-inch hands. That's actually some of the biggest hands I've seen at the Combine. So, big dude. Probably too big to play edge in a 3-4, you would think. Maybe too big to even be a Leo in a 4-3. Like, what is this guy going to end up doing? Is he going to end up being a 5-tech? 3-4 down lineman? I'm a little bit unclear about where he fits in. His 40-yard dash was, for his size, I'd say good, 4.58. That surprised me. The 10-yard split was pretty decent, 1.64. It's okay. For a guy of his size, I'll live with it. Where he really kind of started to fall short was the vertical and the broad. His vertical jump was barely over 3.5 feet, 2.5 feet. His broad jump wasn't even 10 feet. And that's probably because he's just heavy. But if you're going to be an edge player in this league, if you're going to get the explosion off the edge, I need a little bit more than this. So I kind of look at this and I go, I don't know if I see the explosiveness that I want, but it's still better than I thought because this 40 time is all right. The 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle weren't particularly good, but that I just don't know what to make of Lucas Van Ness right now. If anybody in the chat feels like they can put down some clarity on Van Ness, please let me know. All right, let's move on to a defensive tackle here who kind of gave me mixed messages as well. It's Gervon Dexter of Florida. This is a guy who I really liked during the season and definitely have had my eye on. I got mixed messages from this Combine. So, first of all, he's a little bit bigger than I thought. 6'6", 310 pounds, which for him is probably good. He's a bigger guy, can play on the interior all day. 310 pounds is plenty. The arm length is not ideal. It's 32 and a quarter. I don't have good control on my words today. I don't know why. And hands 9.5 inches. You'd like to see a little bit better. A lot of the defensive tackles I've looked at in this Combine have much longer arms than that. So that's not ideal. The 40-yard dash for a 300-pound man, workable, 4.88. Remember, the defensive tackle who, set the standard for 40 times this year, Cansey, is about 30 pounds lighter than Dexter. So that's not really a fair comparison to make. This is a very respectable 40 time for a 310-pound man. 10-yard split is kind of slow, admittedly, but for a 310-pound man, I think I can live with that. The vertical and the broad jump are pretty low. The broad jump barely crossed 9 feet. The vertical jump was barely over 2.5 feet. The 3-cone, 7.5 seconds, which, for a guy his size is probably workable, but I'm just getting kind of mixed messages here. There are things that I like. The size is nice. The arm length is questionable. 40-yard dash is great. Some of the explosiveness scores are... I go back and forth on him because I know he's slow off the ball as is. Like, he's really slow getting off the ball. So, for me to fall in love with him again, he would have to blow away the Combine. I don't think he did. He blew it away in some areas, though. So, not bad. And let's move on to our final position I want to look at in this video, linebacker. Two guys who I had my eye on and gave me mixed messages. The first guy is DeMarvin Overshone, Texas linebacker. A lot of Seahawks fans are starting to be into this guy as like a day 3 sleeper who could end up becoming something really good in the NFL. So he didn't do all the stuff that you want a player to do at the combine, of course. He definitely missed a couple things that would have been interesting to see. 6'3", 229 pounds, so he's on the smaller side. His 40-yard dash was not that great given the fact that he's a smaller guy. 4.56, that's not exactly what we're looking for a guy who's 230 pounds. The 10-yard split, however, pretty good. 1.59, I can definitely take that 10-yard split. Broad jump, 10 feet 4 inches, pretty good. I feel like that's probably good enough for a guy you're probably going to get on day 3. Maybe he sneaks into day 2, by the way, but I doubt it. And I don't know. I just feel like if you're going to be lighter, you need to be a little bit faster. But the 10-yard split makes me feel like maybe I won't notice it as much. So mixed messages here. And one last guy I want to visit here. It's Noah Sewell. And you guys know, this is a guy that I have not been a big fan of throughout much of his season this last year. He was a guy I had eyes on. I didn't really like what I saw. But I had to take a look at his combine to see what was up. And I had to see how he would perform. I was very interested to see this. And I guess you could say there were some things that impressed me a little bit, and there were some things that kind of reaffirmed my previous assumptions. I would have loved to have seen this guy do the 3-cone or the 20-yard shuttle. He did not, but he weighed in at 246 pounds. So this is a bigger linebacker, 6'1.5". So he's actually kind of stout, which checks out with what I see. But his 40-yard dash ended up being about 4.64. That's not bad for a guy who weighs almost 250 pounds. Like, I thought he was going to run slower than that. I thought he was going to be around 4.7. So the 40-yard dash score is all right. The 10-yard split, like, that's actually almost as good as Trenton Simpson's 10-yard split. It's not that far off. It's 0.02 of a second slower than Trenton Simpson's 10-yard split. It's actually also the same distance away from Henley's 10-yard split. It's a little bit better than Jack Campbell's 10-yard split. So maybe the speed is not the big concern that I thought that it was going into this combine. Now, his vertical jump was good. Pretty solid, I guess. Okay. Broad jump was kind of bad, which I expected because he's on the heavier side. But as somebody who hasn't really liked Sewell during this whole process, this was not bad. There's some stuff here to get behind. So these are the guys who sent me mixed signals at the combine, and I'm not sure how to feel about them. In all likelihood, it kind of evens out for these guys, right? Like if I liked them before, however much I liked them before is how much I like them now. So let me know what you guys think. Can you guys solve the riddle of these particular players in this upcoming draft? How do you think they did at the combine?